Well, welcome to the Middlesex County Council meeting, Tuesday, September 13th, 2022 at 1 p.m. At this time, I would like to acknowledge that the land we're on and where we gather is the traditional territory of the Attawaran, the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Lenape peoples, who have long-standing relationships to the land, water, and region of southwestern Ontario. The local First Nations communities of this area include Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, Oneida Nation of the Thames First Nation, and Munsee Delaware Nation. So here we are at our first meeting in September. Although it's not fall yet, the nights are getting longer and the mornings start out cold and quickly heat up in the afternoon. All over the county, fall fairs are completing their preparations to celebrate coming back from either scaled down fairs or cancellations. I encourage everyone to get out and support your local fair. And don't forget our regional fair held in London. Many great memories have been created at the Western Fair. Last weekend, it was my pleasure to attend the Middlesex 4-H show in Ilderton. I was able to congratulate 4-H members and leaders on the 100th anniversary of Middlesex 4-H activity. It was exciting to see all of the clubs gathering together for the opening ceremonies. Everyone was represented from all over the county. Dairy, beef, sheep, swine, horses, and life skill clubs were all present. Lots of familiar faces, but many new ones as well. 4-H is not only affordable for our youth, but accessible for both rural and urban residents. 4-H is often our youth's first experience with formal meeting structure. Clubs elect officers and meetings are run using Robert's parliamentary rules. Governance is learned, and through that experience, many of our 4-H youth graduate to be elected officials or employed at jobs that are associated with many different levels of government. On September 1st, one notable past 4-H member returned to Middlesex as a guest speaker at the OFA regional meeting. Senator Rob Black spoke to the audience about his journey to the Senate. During this discussion, he explained the structure and the role of the Senate. It was a wonderful opportunity to learn more and to ask him questions about his experiences. Senator Black made it clear that he felt 4-H was a large part of his early development and led him ultimately to the Rural Institute of Ontario and later to the Senate. I truly think that the 4-H motto that learn to do by doing is valuable advice. And even more, the 4-H pledge that asks members to use their head for clearer thinking, their hearts to greater loyalty, their hands to larger service, and their health to better living is a great pledge to live by. Simple but impeccable advice. So when you're out visiting our local fairs this fall, take some time and look for 4-H exhibits and members. You'll be impressed by the work that our youth are achieving. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to ask for any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Seeing none, and I've got you on the screen, Joanne, so I'll just wave if you need, and I'm not looking at you. Any business arising from the minutes? Okay, at this time then, we have 4A, minutes of the August 30th, 22 meeting of County Council, and that I would like them approved as presented, and that the recommendations by the Committee of Whole as set out in the minutes of the August 30th, 2022 meeting be adopted. Moved by Councillor Mayhew, seconded by Councillor Richards. All in favor? Okay, and so that's moving on now to 4B. Closed meeting minutes of the August 30th, 2022 meeting of County Council. And looking for a mover to accept those minutes. Councillor DeVete, seconded by Councillor Corneliuson. All in favor? So moved. And not the closed meeting minutes of August 30th be approved as presented. Any deputations? No? Okay. Inquiries or notice of motion? Seeing none. Reports. New business, and we have new business, and it will be from Brent Kerwin from Strathmere Lodge Administrator regarding flooring replacement. So whenever you're ready.
Through you, Warden, to Council. Through its approved annual capital budget, the lodge has been replacing flooring in its 5 resident home areas, 1 resident home area every year. Council approved the last of the 5 resident home areas to be refloored with approval of the lodge's 2022 capital budget. So a request for tenders was recently posted on the bids and tenders website. 5 bids were received, and those bids were evaluated against the criteria in the tender document. And the vendor with the lowest bid in compliance with the tender was selected. So I'm recommending that a bylaw be introduced at this council meeting to authorize and approve the agreement between Strathmere Lodge and Adius Impacts Limited for flooring replacement at the lodge, and to authorize the warden and clerk to execute this agreement. Happy to entertain any questions with regard to the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Brent regarding this? Councillor Rob?
Thank you. Through the warden to Brent. Is the flooring in each section, is like in each pod, is it different flooring or is it the same flooring goes through?
Through the warden to Councillor Rob, we have made it consistent in each of the 5 home areas, with the exception of the secure unit, where we've gone with vinyl instead of carpeting, just for cleanliness purposes.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing or hearing none, then I'm going to ask that this be moved. So looking for a mover. Councillor Rob. And seconded, Joanne, you have your hand up. Is that a question? Okay. Did you want to second it? Okay. And so Councillor Van Hayden seconded. All in favor? So carried. Moving now on to 8B, Federal Electoral Boundaries, Proposed Redistribution Plan, report from Bill Rayburn, CEO. Did you want me to speak to this or did you want to start? Okay. So I think pretty well everybody has been bombarded by the information that the federal government has sent us. It's been on social media, it's been on TV, it's been on the newspapers, that they are looking to get people's opinions on the redistribution of the federal ridings. We have had already meetings with MP Karen Vecchio, MP Leanne Rude, and that also involved members of this council, Kathy Burkhardt-Jessen, and as well as Brian Robb, representing their municipalities who will be affected by this redistribution. At this point, we have a motion here basically asking that we are permitted to present at the hearing at the Ivy Spencer Leadership Center on October 28th. It's nice that they changed it to October 28th. Previously, it was October 24th, and I think a lot of other people would be pretty occupied at that time. So luckily, we're moved on to the 28th. This is it is a concerning thing. I think we should be involved. Our voices should be heard. When we look at federal ridings, we know that municipal ones may, provincial ones may soon follow. And then we have already talked to, Cindy Howard about how that affects our servicing and all the different aspects of how we are served by our ministers and how we will be served by them. So I think it's important that we participate, and we do have a motion here that staff be directed to submit a public hearing participation form to the Ontario Commission to enable the warden to make representations regarding the impact of the proposed redistribution on residents of Middlesex County at the public hearing held October 28th at the Ivy Spencer Leadership Center. So Councillor Burkhardt-Jessen.
I'm happy to move that, but I do have a couple comments on that, if you don't mind, Warden. I would agree with you. I think this is an important process that we should be participating in. But I guess I'm just wondering, what will our presentation be? I know that Thames Center in particular is in a unique geographical position. And so you're kind of being pulled in a couple of different directions. But if from a county perspective, I'm just wondering how that presentation is going to be put together, and whether it's just going to be from the concerns Or is there an idea that you're going to present a solution, a different solution?
Ideally, I mean, the simple answer would be status quo. But we know that this is a committee that's looking for solutions and changes. But I do think that before we make those suggestions, it should be a group effort with everybody's concerns that's affected through this. So it's not just going to be one particular municipality being represented. It should be all of us and the effects that it has on that. I saw your hand up, CEO Rayburn. Did you want to address this?
Yeah, Kathy just beat me to the punch there because I was going to add to what you said, Warden, that the idea would be we'd prepare a base presentation, distribute it to council and get your feedback because the intent anyways is to have a very strong county lens to this. What does it mean for all county residents? I think there will also be presentations by local municipalities about what it means to you locally, and that's fine. But we're going to talk mostly, the initial draft is going to talk mostly about the impact upon service delivery and funding and representation, as it should, but with that county lens, especially because the human services we provide are often have funding distributed to them provincially based upon those boundaries. We get kind of concerned sometimes just about being divided in two in the current jurisdiction. And now we're going to be divided like a pizza. So this is going to be really, really hard to address some of the concerns we had before. They're just going to get worse. So base level presentation, comments at council, adaptation, but with a huge county lens to it without talking about local municipal sort of like concerns. It would be more of this big, broad picture type stuff.
I saw Councillor Burkhardt, you had your hand up and then Councillor Elliott. So we'll go in that order.
Yeah, just as a quick follow-up, no, I appreciate that. And I think that that's the way to look at it. It is a complex discussion because I think for us at the municipal level, there's fear of the ripple effect of changing federal boundaries and then what could come from that. But I think the broad look is good and I appreciate that. And to the point where, I mean, we're making a presentation at the Luke and Biddulph level. We've already registered. So I would encourage also not only the discussion amongst the elected officials, but I know that Bill gets together on a regular basis with the local CAOs and to get their feedback as well. That's all.
Okay, I'm going to go Councillor Elliott and then Councillor Vanderheyden.
Thank you. And not to beat this too much, but I think that it is important just on that county lens and the service delivery. And I know that's affecting Elgin County as well with St. Thomas being pulled out of Elgin County. But I think that county lens and keeping us together as a county is a big part of it, as great as status quo is. The fact I've always not enjoyed how Temp Center is separate from the rest of the county. So I think having a presentation that focuses on keeping the county together is really important from a service delivery standpoint.
Councillor Vanderheyden.
Yes, thank you. I agree with the comments that have been made. I did also have a meeting with MP Rude myself, so understand where the thought process is going. And I really believe that, you know, we need to be like-minded, and community of influence is very, very important. Right now, the maps are all done by population, of course, and that doesn't bode well for the real rural voice. I mean, our voice is important, and we have to make sure that it's heard. And I also agree with the service delivery and funding piece. So I am totally in favor of this, and I'm looking forward to the reports that come forward because we need to have a strong voice for our residents. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's something that County Council has always been very strong on, is looking at the rural lens and how it affects our residents. And I think, you know, on a quick look, when it gets even more in depth, we'll know that we'll be affected by this. So I think it's extremely important. Any more discussion? If not, we have a recommendation in front of us. Would someone like to move this? Councillor Burkhardt Jessen, seconded by Councillor Elliott. All in favor? So moved. Any comments, councillors' comments or other business this time? Oh, moving on to bylaws. We have 10A 7191, a bylaw to authorize an agreement with the DS Impacts Limited, and then 7192, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the September 13th meeting of County Council. So looking for a mover. Councillor Richards, seconded by Counselor Rob, all in favor? So moved. And now the bylaws to be given a third and final reading. Counselor Smith, seconded by Counselor Mayhew, all in favor? So moved. And now we're going to move into the committee of the whole. It's 1:16, so looking for a mover. Counselor Mayhew, seconded by Counselor DeVite, all in favor? All right, we do have a public hearing, however, that is scheduled for 2 o'clock. Is that correct? Okay, so I'm going to respectfully ask that we skip that and we'll be returning back to that at 2 o'clock. So that brings us up to 11A2, which is orientation, and a report from CEO Rayburn.
So on this particular item, I was hoping to have a couple things for you today, but we're just not quite ready. But I just wanted to just generally talk about what the plan is for orientation and then maybe give you a bit more of an aggressive look at what we've planned. I know yesterday the warden and I met with Dirk and we filmed our first orientation video around planning. And I think it went fairly well. We just haven't got it edited to show to you yet about what our sample will look like. But generally what we're hoping to do is between the time of the election and the time of the inaugural meeting, that's when we would distribute once every couple of days a different department head video with an overview. So generally what we would do is we'd all sit in the room and listen to a department head for 20 minutes, talk about I have 5 employees and the budget and that kind of stuff. Where the warden and I have been doing these interactive interviews that people can watch at their own time, watch at their own leisure. And then hopefully that's sort of the base level of information for our new counselors that you would normally get in a regular orientation session. That should allow us to have an orientation meeting here that is much more high level. So for example, planning yesterday, we went through 7 questions. You know, where does the funding come from? How does the structure work? What is a one window approach? Those types of things. But if Dirk had his druthers, he would be talking about what type of things do you consider for a plan of subdivision whenever they come to county council. But that's really 2 or 3 steps beyond where we can start. So these videos are intended to be a primer, and then we're going to have an orientation session that's going to be that next level down. So Neil's, like for example, when we get to Neil's section, the original one, the video is going to be about funding and about how many employees and all those types of primaries. But then we're going to get into what are the major challenges around response times or offload delays or whatever, and who does that policy. It'll get down to that second and third level. And I think that's the best way to not waste council's time, because when we get together, one thing that we got feedback last time is it's just so much information all at once that if Dirk and I were talking even about when we do the local ones, if we have to start at, what is planning? Why do we have a planning authority at the county and go all the way down to woodlots, in a whole session? You're done after that. I can't even get to ambulance because I would be done after that. In the video, you'll see Baxter was done after that, whenever you see it. So this is a way to kind of break it up. And so what we're thinking is we'll have video, secondary level type of meeting where we're all in person, and then a third orientation that's really deep into it for certain departments. Probably, you're going to have your finance group in there that are going to be talking. You're going to have some planning discussions, that level of discussion that gets really down into the do's and don'ts. That'll be in the January, February timeframe that we're planning on doing. So that's what we're thinking. And like I say, I was hoping to be able to show you Dirk's video today, but I think I'll send it out to you with the dates, because we do have some dates held. And then that way we can start wiping. If you like this plan, then I can start wiping some of those dates off your calendar, and then start putting some firmness to those dates, because we should really only need you twice for the new council for that second and third level, as opposed to multiple days of orientation. That's our plan, Warden, right? I think.
Yep.
It all sounds good to you because you'll be on vacation somewhere probably, but yeah.
Sounds good to me. All right. So I don't think we need anything. Oh, sorry, Counselor Smith.
Through the warden, just a quick question. Will the videos that you're doing with the department heads, will those just be on the general YouTube page for anybody in the public to also see? And then I'm just thinking about if they're posted prior to the election, then residents across the county of Middlesex, if they want to be informed as to what's happening at the county, what each department does, they could also be informed to ask appropriate questions at all candidates meetings, as well as if in the future, say 2 years down the road, if somebody is just interested in what's going on with Middlesex Land and Paramedic Services, or what's happening with the planning department, or what do our staff do, I think it'd be a good opportunity if those were to stay on there.
Yeah, so I'm so glad you asked that question because it reminded me of, I was going to ask you whether you want that, because they are pretty good primers for each one of the departments. They're good general conversations, especially at that level. I don't think you want to get into the next level, but that first level is a really good primer, and we could have that posted for sure. I was going to ask for permission for that. The other thing that we're also thinking about doing is, I've been talking to Lynn about orientation at the city, because we're a service delivery provider for the city. So Neil and I are thinking through what it would look like to have 2 or 3 videos about land ambulance funding. What are the major challenges? Like, those sort of, I think the attention span time I have is around 12 minutes maybe on some of these topics. So 3 12-minute videos on those. And we would again put those up to the public too, because they might be a little bit, they'd be a higher detail than what they'd read in the paper, and stretch into impacts on service delivery. So we're thinking about all of that, but if that's okay with council, then I'm happy to take that suggestion as direction.
Right, so we have a report that we're take for information, but if there is some direction that you would like to take, now's the time to say it. Okay, all right. So do you want to read back then the motion that we're doing? Okay, just receiving for information then for report from Bill Rayburn 11A2 regarding orientation. So mover, Councillor Brennan. Seconded by Councillor Mayhew. All in favor? So moved. 11B1, moving now on to Thames Centre Official Plan Amendment 26-502-6367 Ontario Incorporated, file number 39 TC OPA 226. A report from our Director of Planning and Development. Whenever you're ready, Dirk.
Thank you, through the warden. Amendment number 26 would change the designation of a portion of a property just west of Thorndale from agriculture to an extractive industrial designation, and would allow the establishment of a licensed aggregate operation. The overall property is 35 hectares. The area subject to the official plan amendment and the potential extraction is 14 hectares. And it's essentially at the northwest corner of County Road 27 and 28. The materials supported in support of the proposal indicates that the licensed area that it would occur above the water table, and therefore the lands would be returned to an agricultural after use. Attached to the report, or my overview report, are the local planning reports, location map, copy of amendment number 26, etc. So you've of course had other aggregate proposals before you, and so you understand the provincial policy context, which provides for the removal of agricultural land for aggregate extraction. The county's official plan has similar policy context, and Thames Centres has more detail and criteria that are to be considered, and the municipality are satisfied that those were considered. The county did not receive any written submissions concerning the amendment. There was a fair number of them at the local level, and my report gives an overview of what those considerations were. As you know, the proposal also is subject to an ARA license, Aggregate Resources Act license from the Ministry of Northern Development, and the applicant is working their way through that. So the only other thing I would highlight is during the local process, hydrology reports, natural environment, and noise reports were all subject to peer review at the request and the requirement of the municipality. And so those matters have been satisfied, and the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority has indicated no objection. So in the end, I am satisfied that it is consistent with the PPS and conforms with the applicable official plans, and I am recommending approval.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Nope, seeing none, hearing none. So we have a motion in front of us that amendment number 26 to the Thames Centre official plan be approved, and staff be directed to circulate a notice of decision as required by the Planning Act, and the notice of decision indicate that no written submissions were received concerning this application. Mover? Councillor David, seconded by Councillor Knudsen. All in favor? So moved. Now moving on to 11B2, Middlesex Center Official Plan Amendment No. 56, Walker, file number 39MC's OPA 56. Again, Dirk, whenever you're ready.
Thank you to the warden. Very briefly, this is a sort of a technical amendment. It's an existing 10-acre property in Middlesex Center in the agricultural designation, and they have 2 existing homes on the property that have been there for a number of years. So amendment number 56 would recognize that second dwelling as an additional residential unit and would permit it to continue. So the report goes over it very briefly. As you know, we've recently, the policies have changed to allow for those additional residential units, and this is sort of bringing into compliance an existing situation. No comments were received, even during the local public process related to this particular component of the proposal. So again, I am recommending approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions regarding this application or amendment, I should say? Nope. Then we have in front of us an amendment number 56 to the Middlesex Center official plan be approved, and that staff be directed to circulate a notice of decision as required by the Planning Act, and that the notice of decision indicate that no written submissions were received concerning this application. So looking for a mover, Council? Councillor Brennan, seconded by Councillor Ropp. All in favor? So moved. Now moving on to 11B3, 2023 Middlesex County Council and Library Board meeting calendar, and believe this is yours, Marcy.
Thank you, Warden Warwick. This is the 2023 meeting schedule for County Council and Library Board. It's similar to previous years and includes dates for all the 2023 conferences. There will only be one meeting in January, February, April, June, July, and August. The report also includes proposed changes to the library schedule for the remainder of this year. So the recommendation, as set out in the report, is that the library meetings be rescheduled for September 27th, November 15th, and December 6th. That the 2023 County Council and Library Board meeting schedule be approved. If required, a special County Council meeting may be called by the warden, and that upon approval of the calendar, the copies of the meeting schedule will be circulated.
All right. Any questions regarding this? Comments? No? Hearing and seeing none. Well, we've had the motion read to us, so now looking for a mover. Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Richards. All in favor? So moved. Our next one, 11B4, Consolidated Highway Bylaw, a report from our county engineer. Whenever you're ready, Chris.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Warden. And I think at the outset, I'd like to put my thanks out to Marcy, the clerk, who we worked together on this. And I won't get into a great level of detail. This is more of a housekeeping item for us. These are separate bylaws that have been consolidated into a single highways bylaw. Certainly, some of these bylaws were well in need and overdue for an update to bring them up to date with current legislation requirements and to provide more clarity to developers and people using this bylaw for permitting purposes for different activities around the county. So just in a general sense, just to let you know what's being covered under this bylaw, the main 3 issues I would say are entrance permits, our work permits, and our oversize and overweight work moving permits. The entrance permits are described in a schedule which provides detailed information to developers or owners of properties for how entrances are regulated, how they're permitted, how they should be constructed, and what the rules are about entrances depending on the classification of the county road and the construction of that county road. So we have different rules depending on whether you're in the rural area or you're within an urban area, and it's the construction of the road we're concerned about. It's not municipal boundaries, but if a road has curb and gutter, then we have different requirements than if the road has roadside ditches. And then some other changes with regards to classification. So intrinsically, a 4-lane arterial road in our county official plan designation would have more requirements, more stringent requirements than for a collector road within our county official plan policies, and those are integrated into the bylaw, and they're listed in the schedule to the bylaw. The second one is with regards to our work permits. And again, this is a permitting process that's covered, but it's just a means by which the county can control what happens within our public highways and puts requirements on contractors to follow certain rules with regards to Ministry of Labor and general road safety practices, and covers us off from a liability standpoint to make sure everyone is insured and following the rules. It gives us an ability to collect fees and security deposits to make sure work is done to our standards and restoration is completed. Gives us some ability to draw upon funds to complete that work under our own expense if we're not satisfied with the work completed by the contractor. Overweight and overdimensional loads, sizes and weights of vehicles are regulated under the Highway Traffic Act, but municipalities have the ability to provide exemptions to those rules. I did note in here that this doesn't apply to agricultural vehicles or vehicles used for normal farm practices. You know, of course, we do what we can to facilitate those type of activities in the county, and this bylaw isn't prescriptive to regulating those types of vehicles. These are generally for things, you know, years ago, we saw a lot of these for when we were doing wind turbines, but we do see occasionally for generally for large hydroelectric or electric type projects. Some of these transformers and other materials that move through our county are oversized or overweight. And again, generally prescribes what's required for these different haulers to move through, whether they have to have escorts for their vehicles, whether they have to do a structural analysis of any structures or bridges that they're going to cross over traveling through the county. And those rules are prescribed in the bylaw and the permitting process for those as well. We do have a couple other ones here. The sales permits. We don't permit sales of items or goods on county highways, but there are abilities under this bylaw to permit those activities to proceed. Generally in cases of if there's a fair or any other use of a county right of way for any type of retail activities, we can permit those through this bylaw. The bylaw doesn't talk directly to parking, but it does give us, we do have to do something to modify our existing county parking bylaw. It gets amended as in accordance with this to allow for local bylaw enforcement officials to enforce parking regulations on county roads. We have our one county bylaw enforcement officer in the building today. That's our forestry officer who does some of those activities, but we don't have the mechanism or the staff available to do bylaw enforcement on county highways. So that has traditionally been assigned to local municipalities who do the bylaw enforcement and also collect any fees as a result of those enforcement activities. The fees are not directly prescribed in this bylaw, but we do have a separate bylaw that allows us to change our fees from time to time in order to reflect the actual cost for us to perform some of the services, especially around permits. So our permit fees generally are set such that our administrative costs are covered, as well as inspection costs, vehicle usage, staff time, and it's an average. So some permit fees would be quite simple for us to administer, others might be more complex, but the permit fees are set to be a reasonable average of costs for the supply of those types of permits under those types of activities. And then you'll see at the end, there are a list of offenses and charges that we can lay under this bylaw, and the fees or the actual cost of enforcing those activities to the public are prescribed through legislation, and those are put through our bylaw, and those will be amended and updated from time to time as those offense levels change as per the provincial regulations. So I'm proposing that the county highway bylaw, which is Appendix A to the report, and the proposed bylaw to amend the parking bylaw 6208, which is Appendix B to this report, be introduced at our next council meeting on September the 27th for approval. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions? Councillor Robb.
Thank you. Through the warden, Chris. And I think this would have more to with the entrance permits. And I'm wondering, when is it required, or it doesn't need to be in here for passing lanes or turning lanes when we have entrances?
Yeah, through the warden, in the bylaw, it does give us the ability to require developers to make improvements to the county highway system as determined by the county engineer for their direct impact on our county road system. So if there's a large commercial development, it's prescribed in the bylaw under Appendix A, under Appendix A, under Schedule A. It does talk a little bit in there about what type of things would be required depending on the type of development. So for example, if it's a residential development of 2 or 3 units, then we would normally have residential type access. But when we get to beyond 4 units, then we're looking for further road improvements. So it's partially described in the bylaw. And then there is during a more intensive type of development, like a plan of subdivision, condominium, or some kind of large industrial site or commercial site development, that's when we would incorporate some of our concerns with planning and require some of those additional reports, as is noted, like stormwater management reports, grading, other engineering type studies and reports that we would need, such that we would be satisfied that the development doesn't have a negative impact on the county road network.
Okay. Any other questions? Oh, then we have a motion in front of us. I can reread it again if you want, that the proposed county highway bylaw and the proposed bylaw to amend parking bylaw be introduced at the September 27th, 2022 meeting at County Council. Councillor Mayhew, seconded by Councillor Elliott. All in favor? So moved. Moving now on to correspondence and information items. We have 11C1 all the way to 11C9. With the general payables, the economic payables, ITS payables, library payables, MLPS payables, planning, roads, and Strathmere Lodge payables and social services. So we're asking for a motion that 11C1 and 11C9 be received for information. Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Corneliuson. All in favor? Opposed? Noted. Now moving on to 11C10, which is the County City Liaison Committee report. 11C11, the Middlesex Center Official Plan Amendment. 11C12, final approval of Cirrus Developments. 11C13, AMO policy update, and 11C14, and again, another AMO policy update. Any questions or concerns about the following? If not, then I will ask for a mover. Councillor Richards, seconded by Councillor DeVete. All in favor? So moved. Now, any inquiries? Okay, then do you want to go into closed session then, or what would you like to do? CA Rayburn.
I just about got a big pay cut there. Council has some information in their email that they asked for at our last session, so that's there. What I would suggest, Warden, is we were hoping to have more information to provide the council today. We're missing one piece. So what I would suggest is take a look at what the information you do have for this session, and at the next meeting, we'll come back with both pieces and answer all questions at that meeting. Hopefully then we'll be able to sort of get over the hump on that day. So that's what I would suggest. I don't need to go into camera unless someone else requests that we go into camera to talk about it, but you just got that information today, so I'd suggest you take a little time to digest it.
Okay, so your suggestion is that we defer this until everyone has a chance to look at the information. You'll bring it to the next meeting?
And also get the next piece of information you requested, but yes.
Okay. Any conversation about that? Okay, then I would look for a mover. And that would be Councillor Burkhart-Jessen, seconded by Councillor Elliott. All in favor? So moved. So I would say then we would have a recess until 2 o'clock. Is that what we are looking for? Okay. Well, don't go too far. I know you've got some time, but don't go too far. So again, looking for a mover for the recess. And that would be Councillor Robb, seconded by Councillor DeVete.